All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today we're going to be talking all about the transfer portal. Obviously, Oklahoma's starting to lose quite a few guys here, and it could get worse. So we're going to dive into what Oklahoma's potential needs are going to be in this transfer portal, especially after signing a pretty small high school recruiting class. I think it ended at 18th overall, so it would not surprise me if they're going to rely
18
heavily on the portal.
commits. 18 commits, 16 overall.
16th ranked overall. Okay,
18
so
commits. Yeah,
gotcha. So, well, we're gonna dive into it, see, and just talk about the potential needs and maybe who's gonna be joining the team once the transfer portal opens on Monday. Let's go. I don't know when I'm gonna get over that intro. It's still pretty
I
cool.
like it. I like it a lot.
All right, so we're gonna start with maybe not the biggest one, but one that could affect Oklahoma and who they go after in the portal. Jackson Arnold, former five-star quarterback, enters the transfer portal, is speculated to be looking into Georgia, Auburn, and the one that probably everyone would have guessed, Mississippi State. Uh, Starting Monday when he can officially take visits. But as everyone knows, with this college football world, these conversations probably have already been had. That's why we're narrow. It's been narrowed down to those three as reported. So Brandon, we had this conversation last video, Jackson Arnold versus John Mateer. He made that decision pretty easy. It's if John Mateer enters the portal, that's got to be the guy Oklahoma gets. But is it a big loss realistically and production wise for Oklahoma not having Jackson Arnold right now?
I mean, I hate it. I've been texting buddies. I became a huge Jackson Arnold guy late in the season. I mean, I think the kid's gonna be really good. I think it's gonna suck ass watching him go to fucking probably Auburn next year just because we're on the same schedule with them and just he'll probably throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdown passes. And, everybody who thought he sucks is going to be like, damn, this sucks because this guy's tearing us apart. But at the end of the day, it happened. It sucks. I don't like it. I do think it's going to hurt your production. I mean, I don't know. I think you can get a guy comparable. I think John Mateer at this point, I really hope John Mateer does enter the portal, and I hope Oklahoma throws everything they have to land him. I hope they pull out all the stops. I hope Ben Arbuckle is in constant communication and kind of makes it to where he can't say no, essentially. You kind of lay out all the stuff. You have to bring him in. And that doesn't even necessarily mean that he has to be the starter. I think he'd be the odds-on favorite to start if he were to commit to Oklahoma. But I think you should at least have a quarterback competition. I think Hawk's a guy that is willing to stay there and willing to compete and kind of see where it goes, see where the road takes you. But regardless, I think you need two quarterbacks, two readily available quarterbacks, and I think at the moment we only have one, and that's in Michael Hawkins. And if we were to stay that way the whole season or the whole off season, then Hawkins goes down with an injury or whatever, and you're pretty much screwed and tattooed. Yeah, you've got to have two capable quarterbacks on a roster at the minimum. And I think at the moment, again, I think it's just Hawk, and then we're really young, and you don't love that in the SEC play. So I hope John Mateer hits the portal, and I hope that Ben Arbuckle and company are chasing him very, very hard.
Yeah, I think at this point for the quarterback position, it's Mateer or there might be a panic going into the 2025 season because Hawkins showed flashes of good, but it was mainly with his legs. With his arm, there wasn't a ton of production, and I get it. The offense, especially when he was running, was headed by Seth Luttrell, which was awful. But still, one of the biggest question marks going into his freshman year was his accuracy, and it was hit or miss. He showed flashes, like I said, but that South Carolina game kind of exposed maybe his worst game that he may have in his career. You can't throw three, or you can't have turnovers that quickly, and basically have put the nail in the coffin for Oklahoma for that game before you even hit the 5 minute mark of the first quarter. It was a tough look, but you got to pick yourself up and move on there. If Hawkins is the guy that does start, let's just look at it in a world where John Mateer maybe doesn't enter the transfer portal, or for whatever reason Oklahoma screws the pooch and Mateer is not the guy that they end up with. You got to just put Hawkins in a position to succeed, and I think with Ben Arbuckle you can do that. You still need a more experienced quarterback behind him. So you're seeing a lot of guys enter the portal, the quarterback position. I wouldn't be surprised that if Oklahoma goes in to at least get a backup quarterback, but we all think fans, reporters, insiders, everyone's expecting it and wanting it to be John Mateer to hit the portal and follow Arbuckle to Oklahoma. That is best case scenario because, like you mentioned, all this youth in the SEC is not good. Really, in any college football, is not good. It's not a good sign of things to come or success, at least, unless you just have guys like Caleb Williams and Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, guys that are just studs from the beginning of their college career, and those are few and far between. These guys need some time to develop, and I don't know if it's gonna necessarily be good for Oklahoma and Brent Venables if they can't land a top tier quarterback in this transfer portal cycle.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. John Mateer is option A. I think everybody below that is option D and below. I think there's a huge gap between option A and option whatever's next. But regardless, they will find some other quarterback in the portal. They have to.
Yeah. I mean, Noah Fafita got in the portal. I don't know how well he did this season. I know Arizona kind of stunk, but that's another quarterback that has had really good season, a really good season before. I don't think that he played terribly this year, but just not to the expectations of what he had after the end of the 2023 season. So we'll see. I mean, fingers crossed John Mateer gets in because he is. I'm not going to go all the way saying Baker like, but he kind of has, when you watch him play, kind of has an attitude behind it just because of the way he runs. He's not afraid to take a few hits here and there.
Yeah.
Um, Moving on to the next guy, Nick Anderson, highly sought after wide receiver coming out of high school, had an outstanding season last year as a redshirt freshman. His most memorable moment being that touchdown pass or catch against Texas to win the game. That one, I think, is when you can look at it and say, man, that one actually stinks because you only got 1 year of production out of him. His freshman year, probably wasn't going to play much, but he was also kind of hurt. Second year, he played every game. And this year, he couldn't get on the field. He was on for like 4 minutes. And there's clearly a lot of people on Twitter, kind of 50-50. Some people are saying there's issues with the medical staff, and others are saying that these guys quit on the team before the season even started. I'm sure that it's probably somewhere in the middle. I think these guys, honestly, and I don't know for sure. There might be an issue with some medical staff and diagnosing and properly treating. At the end of the day, these guys are also trying to get to the NFL, and if there is some truth in any of that with the medical staff, I would say they did try to come back from my perspective, but if an injury happened again and they got a second opinion and that wasn't what OU medical staff treated it for, and then they got re-injured because of something else, like you got to understand. At least I would say you got to understand why they would want to leave if that Oklahoma medical staff isn't going to be rearranged in some way.
Yeah, I mean this one really sucks. This season we talked about it going south for a lot of reasons. There's Seth Luttrell, there's whatever. There's a laundry list of reasons why this season didn't go the way that a lot of us expected it to. Especially coming off a 10-win season last season. You're thinking, okay, now we're going to be good and rolling into the SEC and da 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 whatever. Didn't pan out that way, obviously, and I think the top two reasons are the offensive line and that receiver room being as depleted as it was. Those are the two highlights that seems to be the common denominator here for pretty much any OU fan that you talk to about what the main root of the problem for this team was. It's the offensive line and the receivers. So the optimistic fan, the thing that you could look forward to was next year when we get these five guys back, we build an offensive line. It's gonna be a different look for the offense, different look for the team in general. Boom, there's at least one gone. So now you're at best case scenario. Now is 4 out of 5 come back. I don't know how real that is. It's really it's an unfortunate situation. Whatever the reason being for him leaving at this point doesn't really matter. He's a guy that if you're going to lose a receiver or something, you almost didn't expect it to be him. Just with his brother being Rodney Anderson, his brother being so involved with the program right now, and just I don't know. There was something there. There was what you'd think, but obviously he felt he can better his future, better his college career elsewhere. You wish him the best or whatever, but that I think is the part that really does suck. I think with Jackson, as much as I hate it because I became a huge Jackson guy, is you have a brand new offensive coordinator. You have an inkling or a feeling that maybe John Mateer, who just put up huge numbers at Washington State, is going to follow him, and then you're okay at quarterback, and you get these 5 back. It's a different team, and now you're already before the transfer portal window even opens, you're already down 1, and now your best case scenario 4 out of 5 back, which again would be fine. I think that'd be still a very much different looking team than the team you saw a year ago if those 4 decide to come back, but we'll see.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another one or two of those guys of the 5 injured wide receivers going into the portal. And we've lost Petaway. That one kind of seemed obvious. He got to play a little bit. He had his best game against Tennessee. It looked like he was going to be the wide receiver to step up, and then I never saw
Really
him
weird.
again.
Yeah,
It
really
was
weird.
so strange. So that was understandable. These guys want to get playing time, and if they're not given that
Yeah.
opportunity, then
So
it makes sense.
what are we at right now? 6 total in the portal that were on the team a year ago, and Jackson, Nick Anderson, Jaquez Petaway, or 5, right? And then the 2
5,
back,
yeah.
Caleb Hicks and Emeka, whatever.
Ekemegwa.
No disrespect, but I just don't know how to say his last name. So of the 5, 1 is probably like a borderline shock. The other one in Arnold is, I don't know if you can say shock, but I don't know if you can say you really expected it. It's kind of somewhere in a gray area there. And then the other 3 make total sense. So we haven't been ramsacked or anything yet, but we'll see how the rest of the offseason goes.
So that leads us to the next topic: is what does Oklahoma go after this off season in the portal? Quarterback, obvious, and we talked about it. It's got to be John Mateer, assuming he enters the portal. Again, there was a post a few days ago when Ben Arbuckle was hired that John Mateer intended to enter the portal. At this point, it is just a rumor. If he enters, then that's got to be Oklahoma's guy. That's got to be who they sell out for, essentially. You suspect, since you've lost 2 wide receivers, you at least go out and get 1. And if you continue to lose more wide receivers, you keep adding more, especially since you only took 2 in this high school recruiting class. Now, seemingly, you're bringing back the youth that you brought in last year: Zion Ragan, Zion Kearney, Ivan Carrion, and I feel like I'm missing one. I mean, Jacob Jordan,
Jacob Jordan, yeah.
potentially coming back and seemingly, and I believe he'll be on scholarship because of the new roster rules, it's cut down, but more people can be on scholarship, from my understanding. So maybe I got that rule wrong, but he should be coming back, right? Hopefully, he keeps taking leaps towards his improvement so he can be more impactful on the field. You have some people returning, but out of those that I just mentioned, assuming that you maybe lose a couple more of those returning, those guys that were lost to injury all season, you still need maybe 2 or 3 that can, from the portal, that can come in with some experience ready to hit the ground running. Then what? Maybe a couple offensive linemen, mainly interior guys, and then I would say corners, just and maybe a linebacker because Oklahoma, for whatever reason, is not recruiting linebackers very well over the last couple of cycles since the 23 class, really, or 22 class. I don't know. Yeah, it's been a couple of cycles that Oklahoma's gone heavy again for wide or for linebackers.
Yeah, I mean, I still think we're pretty set at linebacker next year. I think with Kobe and Kip and Sammy Omosigho and Lewis Carter, those are going to be your four really. But I think yeah, it never hurts to have more, whatever at any position. But yeah, 100%. You have to hit a quarterback, and I think as it currently sits, you have to hit at least one receiver. You got to go at least one more receiver because obviously we saw this year five is not always enough. You'd like to have five and hopefully not lose five, but I think you need at least one more receiver. And again, I think if we speculated a little bit, I think realistically we end up probably getting two of the five back. I don't know who leaves or who does what, but I feel like two more of them will leave. And then you need at least three receivers out of the portal. I think you need to. I'd like to see us hammer wide receivers in the portal, hammer a quarterback, and John Mateer, obviously, if he decides to leave. I mean, really, I think running back's the only spot on the offense that you're, even with the two subtractions today, that you're feeling pretty good about. That's still a three deep room right now with some good guys in that recruiting class. I think Tory Blaylock and stuff like that. But it's the running back room. I don't really worry about at the moment. That was like the one bright spot that seemed to be coming on late in the season. Especially with Xavier Robinson and Taylor Tatum being as young as they are. If Taylor Tatum can fix his fumbling issue, he's going to be explosive, going to be really good. Xavier Robinson already appears to be really good, and Javante Barnes was coming on. I think running back, it'd be great to get another one or whatever, but I think that's the spot where you're feeling the best about on offense. Definitely quarterback, definitely get some receivers, depending on how bad the damage gets there. We'll follow that closely. I hope it stays at 4 to 5 come back. That would be awesome, but I don't see that being realistic.
I'd love for Oklahoma to just start getting more aggressive. I don't think that they're lacking NIL by any means. I think that they try to be so strategic with it that they kick themselves in the ass and miss out on someone that could have been more impactful, more immediate. I mean, so far through the fifth, which is when we were recording, wide receiver wise, the most impactful one could probably be Micah Hudson. And Emmett Jones had a relationship, trying to recruit him to Texas Tech before he, moved to Oklahoma as our wide receivers coach. That's someone you can hope Oklahoma can lock in on and at least be a player in that recruitment. Last offseason, Oklahoma really wasn't a player in any big time transfers. Really, Deion Burks and Dominic Williams, they were like later on in the portal from how I remember the portal going. Like they didn't enter immediately, and even still, like it was narrow wins. Wins a win, narrow wins. That you kind of want to be the school where you see, like in a perfect world, right? I think you may agree here. If John Mateer enters the portal, we see a post from Hayes Fawcett or On Three or whoever posted initially. John Mateer intends to enter the portal with the no contact tag. Then everyone's like, oh, yeah, Oklahoma's got him. He's coming to Oklahoma. There's no reason to really worry. We're just waiting for that announcement. That's what you want to see when there's rumblings of guys that Oklahoma's targeting that may not be in the portal yet, but you kind of know. You know where things are leaning. And that hasn't quite yet been the case for Oklahoma. They need to play the game how it's being played now. You got to stop playing Mr. Nice Guy sometimes in these situations, especially when there's a potential job on the line or multiple jobs on the line. But when you just brought in a young offensive coordinator, everyone's kind of risking their jobs here this season for Brent Venables. So you've got to make it worth it for all of them.
100% that last sentence, and that's kind of what I was gonna say to kind of wrap up my thoughts on everything tonight. Is This is the worst part of the offseason, the worst part of a football season, the worst part of anything, as far, especially coming off a 6-6 year, is the part where we want everything to click and fall into place and be what it's going to be right away, and it's unrealistic. And I'm as guilty of it as anybody. You go on Twitter at times like this where if things aren't happening as quickly as you want them to, we tend to it's doomsday on X there. Oklahoma football will never win another game. Everybody's fired. We suck again. We're the new Nebraska. All sorts of shit's going to be thrown there on X if things don't fall into place as fastly as we need them to. And again, I'm as guilty of that as anybody. Me and you text about every day, so you've seen my. I don't put it onto X, on sports, but I am with you guys. I send it all to Hose or some other buddies. I just I blow up there. So I'm with you. I get it. But before everything gets crazy and before I get to that point, because it's going to happen inevitably, is you have to trust the process because of what you just said. Everybody on this Oklahoma coaching staff realizes the importance of this season. And I've said it multiple times. I think 8 wins is the mark that you have to reach. I think whatever happens, you have to find a way this offseason to build a football team that can win 8 games next year in the regular season. You can't go 7-5 and win the bowl game and be 8-5. I think you've got to be 8-4, and then you win a bowl game, you're 9-4. That's huge growth, especially with the schedule we have next year and all that stuff. So if things don't fall into place right away, if it takes longer than we'd like, if whatever, because everybody on this staff understands the importance of this upcoming season. Everything that we've read and everything that we've seen from insiders or whatever, George Stoy, Brent Venable quotes, whatever, is they want guys for this season that are day one eligible players that can step in and make an impact and blah blah blah. They which essentially translates to they are trying to put a team together that is in win now mode next year. It is not a rebuild team, and it might take a little longer than we think. If it doesn't go as fast as I want it to be, I'll be honest, I'll probably just stay off X for a little bit because it gets very depressing. It's not a happy place to be. Everybody's talking about how we suck and we'll never win again and da-da-da-da. And then, it always seems to work out at the end. It's going back to whenever we all wanted Brent Venables to be the head coach. I know some people are wishy-washy there. I'm still there. I'm still excited for Brent Venables. I think the season can be good. But, it took a minute. And then when you hired him, we're all ecstatic again. Ben Arbuckle, that took a couple of days too long. And we all start to panic. We run polls on X saying, are we fucked essentially? Or, and then fucking an hour later, Ben Arbuckle's announced. If it starts off slow, I'm going to stay off X, stay off my phone probably. I say that. That's the intent, is to stay off my phone and hop in when it matters. Trust the process is what I'm saying with the whole long rant.
Yeah, that's all you can do as a fan at this point, and you got to hope that they lock in because it's true. As fans, sometimes, as you're saying, like it can feel like we care more than they do, but it's almost a guarantee that they care about 100 times more than we do because not only do they love their job, but it is their job. They're relying on having a job a year from now at the same school, the same university. So they're not taking it lightly. They know the urgency that they need to have going to the transfer portal and going into the season and the off season and making sure that they're ready to actually compete. Whether you agree with Brandon that 8 wins is kind of the threshold where they need to get to, or you have higher expectations, or maybe you're a little bit more lenient and you're like 7 wins, depending on how they lose some of those games, might be enough to keep them alive. They have the urgency. It can get frustrating because you're like, holy shit, what are you doing? Yep. You knew this was coming, and it feels like you're unprepared, which we get that sentiment because we have it too.
And again, I think 99% of that is exactly that. Is we look at it as an outside perspective with having no skin in the game, without knowing what goes into these types of processes. Is we go, you've had 7 weeks now to think about who this da 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 da, and there's probably a trillion moving parts that go into coaching hires, players, portals, whatever. And it's probably not as cut and dry and black and white as we'd like to imagine it is.
And sometimes I think it'd be interesting to not be an OU fan and really see like how, like, look at Utah. Their Utah fans are freaking out now because they don't have an OC yet, and they've had just as long as Oklahoma, but now they've lost out on Ben Arbuckle, who is their target number one, just like Oklahoma. I think they were targeting Mac Leftwich. He just got hired at Tech. Their quote unquote option three is now where they're at. I don't know who it is. I haven't read too much into that person or recall his name, but yeah, they're freaking out too. And but then so if you were a Utah fan, you'd be like, man, Oklahoma has got their shit figured out. But as OU fans, we're like, holy shit, we're taking forever.
Exactly. It's just I kind of wish we could. It would be really cool if we could just turn off a football brain all the way until like 2 weeks before the season starts next year, and then just look at the roster and play total catch up. And be
It
like,
would be cool. It would be cool to stop caring about the
what
offseason for a
happened?
little bit.
But unfortunately, we live in a world now where our phones are literally, an attachment to us. It's essentially part of our body. It's what we do all day is look at our phone, especially in times like this. And it just ruins the fun. It makes everything stressful. It makes everybody turn on each other. We need to screw off and trust the process. Everybody on the staff understands the importance of this off season. And at the end of the day, guys, it's really, if they don't get it done, if they don't do what we'd like to see them do as fans, they're gone, and then we all get to talk about who we want to replace it and start
We
this
get to do this again next year.
cycle all over again.
That's the beauty of sports. If you
Yeah.
don't like how it goes in a few years, you just get to push the restart button and see
Awesome.
if they can figure it out then. Okay. All right. Well, that was a fun one. If you guys enjoyed listening to this, we're going to have more on the transportal, more details as we get further into it. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you know when we post a new video, as well as share this video and share the channel. We want to keep growing. We want to make sure that we have more OU fans that like to just talk about sports and aren't looking to hear someone complain or sunshine pump all the time, because I think we're pretty realistic about where things are going here, and we'll call them out when shit sucks. But we're also going to try to keep it in perspective sometimes. So we appreciate y'all watching. We'll see you next time.